All right, welcome back to the night class. I'm Coach Knight as usual. Today we're going to be solving right triangles using our trig ratios. Lots and lots of fun. Up until now, we've only solved for the sides. Now we will be also solving for the angles in the right triangle. So everything in math, everything, doesn't matter what you're dealing with, has an inverse. And basically, what does the inverse do? It undoes whatever its inverse is. So like multiplication's inverse is what? Division. So if I want to undo multiplication, I divide. If I want to undo addition, you subtract. They're inverses, okay? Sine, cosine, tangent have inverses. So if I want to get rid, see how it says sine of x right here? If I want to get rid of that sine, I have to take the inverse sine, and it looks like that, okay? If I take the inverse sine of both sides, I'll get that. I'll get my x, because the inverse sine and sine, what? They cancel out, okay? They cancel each other out, and I'm just left with x on the left, and on the right, whatever you do on one side, what? You have to do the other. So now I have the inverse sine of y on the other side, okay? In your calculator, to get to this button, you simply hit the second button and then sine, okay? Second sine will be the inverse sine. Second cosine will be the inverse cosine. Second tangent would be the inverse tangent, okay? These, please know you don't see those often, especially you don't see them on calculators, but those mean the same thing as inverse. Arc sine and the inverse of sine, those are the same thing, okay? There's just two different ways of writing. Everybody good so far? Awesome. All right. So to use these, why would we need to use these? Well, if you'll look at number 5 on our examples we're going to try. Oops. It says to find all the angles. A little more. Come on. There we go. It says solve each equation if 0 degrees is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 360 degrees. So listen, we're finding all the angles. Guys, we're finding all the angles that have a cosine of 1/2 between 0 and 360, including those. Okay? So the first one is very simple to find. How do I get rid of this cosine x? I do the inverse. Okay? So if I do the inverse cosine of the cosine of x, and if I do it on the left, I have to do it on the right. Okay? Now, what happens on the left here? Cancel. They cancel. I'm just left with x, and I just put that in my calculator. So put that in your calculator. What is the inverse cosine of 1/2? 60. 60 degrees. What does that mean? That means if I take the cosine of 60 degrees, I'm going to get what? 1/2. Okay? But that's not the only angle that has a cosine of 1/2 between 0 and 360. So here, I've mentioned it before, you have to remember, all star trig class, okay? Remember, this reminds you what trig ratios are positive and in what quadrant they're in, okay? So the first one means all of them are positive in quadrant 1. So sine, cosine, tangent, they're all positive in quadrant 1, okay? In the second quadrant, sine is the only one that's positive, which means cosine and tangent must be what? Negative. In the third quadrant, tangent is the only one that's positive, okay? And in the fourth quadrant, cosine is the only one that's positive. So I'll remember it. You are my all-star trig class. That way you remember. Some teachers say all students take calculus, but that's not true. You really are my all-star trig class. That is true. So that's why I like using that one, okay? All-star trig class. Everybody good? So how can I use that? Well, I know up here cosine was what kind of number? Positive or negative? It's positive. So that also means there's another angle in which quadrant that would give me 1/2. What quadrant would it have to be in? The fourth quadrant. So basically, I have to figure out what is the 60-degree angle in quadrant 4.
So what can you do? The 360 minus 60?
Exactly right. And what is 360 minus 60? 300. Just to check it, put it in your calculator. Put cosine of 300 in your calculator and make sure you get 1/2. Good?
Yep.
Am I lying to you? Not lying to you. Okay? All right. Let's try tangent. What are we going to take to get rid of the tangent?
Inverse.
Inverse. So x will equal the inverse tangent of negative square root of 3 over 3. I put that in my calculator. Your answer might surprise some of you. What do you get? You hit second and tangent. The blue button, second, tangent, negative square root of 3 over 3. What do you get?
Negative 30.
Negative 30 degrees. Well, that causes an issue because, first off, our first answer isn't between 0 and 360. That's okay. How do we get it between there? Add what?
360.
That'll get us our coterminal angle, right? Okay. So if we just added 360 to that, we're going to get 330 degrees just by adding 360. And again, I'm doing that just to get it between 0 and 360. All right, let's figure out, is there another quadrant where we would have an answer? So let me think about this. What quadrant is 330 in?
Fourth.
It's in the fourth quadrant. Was tangent supposed to be negative in the fourth quadrant?
Yes.
Yes, because the only one that's positive in the fourth quadrant is cosine. Okay? Where else is tangent negative? Third quadrant, tangent is what? Positive. Remember, these are telling you where they're positive.
Sine.
Okay?
The second.
So up here in the second quadrant, what would be a 30-degree angle in the second quadrant? You picked 90 and you shouldn't have picked 90. What should you have picked?
180.
180.
So it'd be 150.
150. Okay? And just to kind of show you what I'm talking about, if you are to draw a 30-degree angle in quadrant 2, okay, how could we figure out what that is? Well, all the way around is what? 180. So we went all the way but except for 30 degrees of that. So you would subtract that from it and you get 150.
So you always do where it would be the opposite.
Correct. Well, you should have two answers every time. Because there's going to be two quadrants where tangent is negative, and there's going to be two quadrants where tangent is positive. You got me? And that goes for the same thing for sine and cosine.
Coach 9.
All right? Yes.
You know how like in the fourth quadrant you do 360 minus to get it?
Correct.
And then the second quadrant you do 180 minus to get it.
Right?
So why don't you do 270 minus?
Because you never use 270 or 90. You only use these. Okay? You got me? So let's say it's a 30-degree angle in the third quadrant. Well, that means that it's right there. So now what do I do with 180 and 30? You add them.
Oh, yes,
So that'd be 210.
yes, sir.
Okay? The fourth quadrant, we already talked about it because we got one over here. So if it's in the fourth quadrant and I'm doing a 60-degree angle in the fourth quadrant, well, that's all the way around is 360. I didn't go all the way around. I went all the way around except for 60 of that. So that's why it's just 300.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
Yes, sir.
So how it works, like say it was sine and it was negative,
So sine negative would be in which two quadrants?
it would be in tangent and cosine.
Third quadrant and fourth quadrant. So my answers would have to be between 180 and 360. Is that making sense? Okay.
So the first answer you get is going to have to be in one of those two quadrants.
Yeah, usually the first answer you get is in the first quadrant. This one wasn't, just simply because we had negative and it couldn't be. Okay? There's no way your calculator can give you the first quadrant answer because there's not an answer in the first quadrant. Because tangent had to be in the second quadrant or the third quadrant. Okay? So if you notice, they actually gave it to you in the fourth quadrant. They just didn't write it like we usually write it. they wrote it as negative 30 degrees. So they went this way. You got me? Okay, they went that way rather than the positive direction and got negative 30 degrees. Okay? All right, everybody good? That's all you have to do on those. What's wrong, Haley? What do you not understand?
I have no idea what you're like talking about. Like, why did you use sine?
Why did I do sine?
But yeah, like when you I understood what we did for number 5. I understood when you get to number 6. I understand you went backwards.
My tangent is what? What is my tangent?
Negative.
Negative. So that means my answer, my angle, has to be in quadrant 2, where the sine is, or quadrant 4, where the cosine is. Because in quadrant 2, what's the only thing that's positive?
Sine.
Sine. So that means tangent has to be what? Negative, which it is. Same thing in quadrant 4. The only one in quadrant 4 that's positive is cosine. So that means tangent has to be negative. Okay? If tangent's positive, it would have to be in the third or first quadrants for my answer. Is that making sense now?
So if it's always going to be negative, it's going to be sine or cosine in the second or fourth quadrant. If it's negative.
Tangent, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay? All right? Now we're going to solve some triangles here. So it says, solve each problem round to the nearest tenth. So we're not solving the entire problem yet, or solving the entire triangle yet. We're still just finding specific parts, okay? So it says R equals 7. So this side is 7. S is 10. And it wants us to find capital R, which means that's the angle. So we do exactly like we've done before. This is the angle. What two sides did they give me?
Opposite and adjacent.
Opposite and adjacent is what trig ratio? Tangent. So I want to take the tangent of R equals, what was opposite? 7 over 10. And now how do you get rid of the tan?
Wait, no, sorry.
Say it, somebody said it. The inverse. R will be the inverse tan of 7 over 10. And notice it says round to the nearest what? 10th. Now, it does not say anything about your answers having to be between 0 and 360, so you just put what the calculator gives you, okay? What is the inverse tan of 7 over 10? 35 point...
It's 34.99.
34.99, so that would round to 35 degrees. Okay? Very simple. So we're going to do the same thing for number 10. Label it a little different here. It says R is 12 on number 10. And T is 20. And this time we're finding angle S. So what sides did they give me to angle S? Adjacent and hypotenuse. Well, what does that use? Adjacent and hypotenuse. Cosine. So cosine of S equals the adjacent side, which is 12, over the hypotenuse, which is 20. You do the inverse cosine of 12 over 20.
It's 53.1.
53.1 degrees, according to my students. Any questions? Easy enough? Understand, you're doing exactly the same thing we were just doing, just now you're finding the angles. Okay? All right. Last few examples. It says solve each triangle described given the triangle at the right, round to the nearest tenth if necessary. Okay, so these don't look too bad, but they're actually quite lengthy. So, number 11, we'll start with it. Label my parts. It says angle B is 78 degrees, and A is 41. Now, when it says solve each triangle, bless me. All right. When it says solve each triangle, that means you're finding everything that you don't know. Okay? So how many sides does a triangle have? 3. How many angles? 3. You're finding all the sides and all the angles with the information they've given you. Okay? Now, if they give you an angle to start off with, the easiest thing is to find the other angle. Because remember, how many degrees are there in a right triangle? 180. It's a right triangle, so you already know half of them, that's 90, right? So the two acute angles have to add up to what? 90. So I'm going to find angle A first. I know angle A has to be 90 minus, what is angle B? 78. So angle A is, what is that? 12 degrees. So now we have found all our angles. You don't have to tell me angle C is 90 degrees. It's a right angle. I will know that. Okay? Everybody good? What else are we missing?
C and B.
We're missing sides C and B. So which one would you like to find first? C. All right? So if we're looking for C, again, I just found angle A, but am I going to use that to find this? No, because what if I missed it? Right? Okay? Always use what they give you if you can. So they've given me the adjacent side to angle B, and I'm looking for the hypotenuse. What uses adjacent and hypotenuse? Cosine. So I want to say the cosine of 78 is going to equal to adjacent, which is 41, divided by C. What is, or what do I do when the variable is on the bottom?
You divide by.
You just switch them. So C will be 41 divided by the cosine of 78. Tell me what that is, rounded to the nearest tenth. 41 divided by the cosine of 78. 197.2. All right. And then now we're going to find side what? Side B. So that's this one. What parts do we have? Tangent. B is opposite. A is adjacent. So the tangent of 78 equals, opposite is B, adjacent is 41. Multiply both sides by 41. Those will cancel. B equals what?
192.
192.9. Now, you can look and make sure, does that make sense? And what do I mean by that? Well, angle C or side C should always be which side? Longest or shortest? Should always be the longest side. Is side C my longest side? Yes. Okay. Angle A is my smallest angle, right? So that means side A should be my shortest side. Is side A my shortest side? Yes. Okay. So that doesn't necessarily mean I got it right, but if any of that was not true, I definitely would have it wrong. Is that making sense? Wonderful. Any questions on 11? Everybody good? All right. Let's try 12. 12, do they give me an angle to start off with?
No.
They do not. So,
But you automatically have to do. Wait, no.
No, you have a 90-degree angle.
you do have 90. That's true. My eraser just is terrible. There it goes. Up, up, up. All right. So for number 12, it says A is 11 and B is 21. Which I don't like the way my pen did on either one of those.
Would you start off with Pythagorean Theorem?
I don't have to, but I am. Okay? It's not like I'm forced to start off with Pythagorean Theorem, but I will. I'm going to find what first? Side C. So C would be the square root of 11 squared plus 21 squared. Okay? And again, that is just doing the Pythagorean Theorem. Okay? A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So
The square root of 562.
Square root of 562. 562. Let's see here. 2 will go into 562 how many times?
281.
281. Does that
It
go
doesn't
in?
go in it.
Does that go into anything? 281. Oh, wait. You know what? We're doing all this for nothing because the question says to what?
Round.
Round in there is 10. So we don't have to simplify all that. You just got to put that in your calculator and round.
It's 23.7.
23.7. Man, that's easy. 23.7. Yeah, it's always good when it says to round because that means you don't have to worry about simplifying your radical. Okay, so 23.7. All right. Which angle you want to find? B? Angle B. I notice I have side B and side A. That's opposite and adjacent. So which trig ratio? Tangent. Tangent of B equals, opposite of B is 21, adjacent to B is 11, so B is the inverse tan of 21 over 11. What is angle B?
62.
62.4 degrees. All right. Can I use that to find A? I can, but do I want to? No. Okay. Again, because what if B's wrong? If B's wrong and use it to find A, you just got them both wrong. Okay. So A will be exactly like B, except the numbers are what? Flipped. Okay. So we're doing tangent of A equals 11 over 21. So A is going to be the inverse tangent of 11 over 21. What would that be? 27.6.
Seniors, this is a reminder that your senior fees are due tomorrow to Ms. Bales in room 407. A reminder that your senior fees will be due tomorrow, that if you want a senior shirt, you have to pay your money by tomorrow.
All right. You hear that? Senior dues tomorrow. Pay Miss Bales. Everybody good on 12? Ready for 13? Last one. All right. It's going to take a little time for my erasing to go through. All right, so number 12, we have A is 32 degrees, C is 13, and we're looking for everything else. So again, when they give you an angle, I said 12, but this is 13, isn't it? When they give you an angle, the easiest thing is to find the other acute angle first. So angle B, what do I do to find it? 90 minus 32. Why does it look ugly like that sometimes? 90 minus 32. What is 90 minus 32? 58 degrees. To find my sides, how would I find A? A is what to 32? Opposite, and I have the hypotenuse, so what uses opposite and hypotenuse? Sine of 32 equals A over 13. Multiply both sides by 13. So you get what? 6.9. And then what about B? To get B, B is what to 32? Nope. Adjacent. B is adjacent to 32. It's right next to it. So cosine of A, which is 32 degrees, equals adjacent b over 13. Multiply by 13 on both sides. 11.01, which is just 11. All right, hope this video helps. See you next time, and as always, stay above the line. Y'all have a great day.